to talk about the biological control of the fall armyworm using entomopathogenic nematode. So this work is a collaborative project between KB, the University of Neuchâtel, and the Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resource Board, which is the governmental agency in Rwanda that is in charge of the agriculture in the country. So this whole project is supervised by Dr. Stefan Töpfer from KB and by Professor Ted Turlings from the University of Neuchâtel. So now that we are very familiar with entomopathogenic nematode, thank you, Professor Kaili, for the very good introduction. I will be fast on these, but I would like to emphasize the fact that nematodes can be mass-produced and that they are safe for farmers and for the environment. And nematodes are commonly used against soil-dwelling pests because, and not very often against above-ground pests, because nematodes are very sensitive to environmental factors such as drought, UV light, and temperature. So if we need to apply nematodes above ground, we need to protect them first. The good thing is that the maize fall armyworm system seems very well suited for nematodes because, as you know, the caterpillars are feeding usually deep into the wrap leaves of the well. And so if we would apply nematode there, the plant will offer a natural protection to the nematode. So deep into the well, there will be more humidity, there will be less heat, and there will be less light radiations. So all factors that will benefit the nematodes. And applied into the well, the nematode will be also in the close contact with the fall armyworm caterpillars, and they will be able to infest them rapidly. So now this seems pretty ideal, but is it sufficient to simply spray water, nematode with water into the well of maize plant to control fall armyworm? Unfortunately, it seems that the evidence suggests that the nematode applied with water does not provide sufficient fall armyworm control in field condition. And the authors and researchers suggested that the reason for this relatively low efficacy is that the nematode in the water will leak out of the well and they will fall to the ground basically, and then they will not be in contact with the caterpillars anymore. And there is also a second factor, that is that the water will evaporate very fast, and then the nematode will dry out and die. So to address this issue, we thought about how to apply nematode above ground for fall armyworm control. And we decided to incorporate the nematodes into different formulations that will remain on the plants so that it will not come to the floor. So the nematode will stay on the plants close to the caterpillars, and that the formulation will also increase the protection to the nematode, so to increase the longevity of the nematode on the plant. So for this, we mainly worked on different gels, on commercially available surfactants, for example, from Coppert or from Inema. We also worked with sand and with different capsules. I will quickly show you a little video to introduce you to this formulation. So here we can see a small bead that I showed before. There is nematode moving inside that bead, and we can put inside the bead some maize juice, and then suddenly it becomes very attractive to the fall armyworm. The fall armyworm will feed on that bead, and after ingesting the nematode, the caterpillar will die, usually within 24 hours. And after a couple of days or weeks, the nematode will reproduce inside, and they will come out in very large numbers. And this is what we can see here, thousands of nematodes emerging from the cadaver. And these new nematode could potentially control new fall armyworm that will infest the plant. So unfortunately, after first preliminary results, we saw that like the sand and the beads were not very promising because A, they were not practical to apply on the plants, and B, they would dry out too quickly. So we decided to focus on the gels and the commercially available surfactants. And as you can see, we can also put some juice into some maize juice or maize udder into the gels, and then fall armyworm is very happy to eat that. So we focused on these two formulations, and we compared them to the application of nematode with just water. So prior to jump into the efficacy of this formulation, let's talk about which nematode should be used. So The good thing is that most nematode species are very pathogenic to fall armyworm, but there is a very high virulence between strains that are in the same species. So as you can see here, here we have the mortality of caterpillars exposed to different strains of nematode, and the color represents different species. And we can see here that this species here is 3 times more virulent than this one, whereas they are from the same species. So it is very important to do screening assays for the virulence of these different strains before to select a good candidate. A second option, point is that it is important to select, to choose a nematode that also has a nice resistance to abiotic stresses, because it's particularly important when we want to apply nematode on plants, because this is not the natural environment for the nematode. So, and here again, the different strains of nematode will have different natural resistance. So here again, it's important to do screening to finally choose among the nematode available which one is the most pathogenic and which one resists well to abiotic factors. The very good thing is that local nematode can be as effective as commercial ones. And this is what we can see here. Where on the vertical axis, we have the mortality of caterpillars, whether they are 2nd instar, 3rd instar, or 6th instar, and exposed to 5, 25, or 125 nematodes per larvae. And the color represents nematode isolated from different regions. So we isolated nematode from Mexico, from Rwanda, or that were commercially available. So we bought these nematodes, and we can see that the nematode from Rwanda are, and as well Mexico actually, are as effective and can be as effective as nematode from the industry. So this is very good, and like this we can use nematode that are from a region, and we avoid introducing foreign material into a region. We can also see that actually very low doses of nematode can be highly pathogenic, which is very encouraging as well. So now let's get back to the efficacy of the formulation. So as I said, we focused on the application of nematode into a gel, the application of nematode into a surfactant, and we compared this to the application of nematode with water. And so for this, we first started with laboratory trials where we had cages containing plants, and we artificially infested these plants with 3rd instar caterpillars. And then we let these caterpillars establish on the plant for 24 hours. And the next day, we applied our treatments into the world of the maize plant. And after 6 days, we assessed larval survival and plant damage. This is what we can see after 6 days. So on the left, we have a plant that is a control plant. So it was only infested with caterpillars. It was not treated with nematode. And we can see that the whorl region is very damaged. And on the right, we have a plant that was treated with nematode. And we can see that the whorl is very well preserved, meaning that the caterpillars are dead on that plant. Regarding plant damage, we use the Davis score, where a 0 represents no damage and a 9 represents a plant that is almost totally destroyed. This scale focuses on the whorl region only. And here on the vertical axis, we have the proportion of each damage score category attributed to our different treatments. So here, the first three groups are the formulation without nematodes. We have just water, just the surfactant, and just gel. And here we have the 3 formulation with the nematode, and we can see that the plant damage is considerably reduced by the nematode treatment, and there is very little damage when the nematode are applied with the 2 formulations. Regarding caterpillar survival, here again we have the 3 formulation without nematode, and here the 3 formulation with nematode, and we can see that caterpillar survival is considerably reduced by nematode treatment, and that even the gel formulation killed every caterpillar that were on the plant. So this is very encouraging, and we wanted to know if these results will also hold true in field condition. And so for this, we traveled to Rwanda. Rwanda is close to the equator in East Africa. And together with a team of Rwandan scientists, we worked into 4 fields that look like this one. And we evaluated the efficacy of nematode applied with water, nematode applied with the surfactant, and nematode applied in a gel. And we compared this to the efficacy of the commonly used chemical insecticide in Rwanda, which is cypermethrin. So for this, we divided our fields into small plots, and we applied one of the treatments into one plot, and then we could evaluate this. So this was a relatively short experiment, so we only did one application, so it's only one treatment, and we assessed the efficacy of this one-time treatment after 5 and 10 days post-treatment. So here is how we applied our different treatments. So for the liquid formulation, we used small sprayers. So this is for the pesticide, for the nematode in water, and the nematode in the surfactant. And for the gel, we used syringes, but we could also use big glue guns that allow to treat several plants. But and for the liquid formulation, we can also use a conventional pesticide sprayer. It also works for nematode, so it can be applied very quickly. Then after 5 and 10 days, we went through the field and we assessed the damage and the population level. And we could see that we recovered caterpillars that were typically looking like nematode kill caterpillars. And so this shows that nematode can control fall armyworm under realistic field conditions. They can still kill the caterpillars in the field. So now for the results, here again, we have the damage after 5 and after 10 days post the application. And we have again the Davy score, so where a 0 represents no damage and a 9 represents a plant that is almost totally destroyed. And here we have the proportion of each damage category attributed to our different treatments. So for the treatment, here we have a control, which is basically no treatment. Then here in the center, we have the three formulations that I presented before. So we have water plus nematode, surfactant plus nematode, and gel plus nematode. And here the second group is water plus nematode B. So it's simply that we tested the two different nematode species applied with water. And on the last right, we have cypermethrin, which is the positive control with the pesticide. And we can see, if you look at the pattern, that the damage is reduced by nematode treatment, and it is reduced to a level that is comparable to what was achieved by the chemical insecticide. And this is true at 5 and 10 days post-application, which is pretty good. Regarding pest densities, so again, we have our different treatments here, and we can see that as compared to the control, the application of nematode reduced the level of infestation. And something that is very encouraging and impressive is that the gel treatment, the gel with the nematode in the gel, was as effective as the pesticide treatment. And this is true at both 5 and 10 days post-treatment. So you may think that the remaining level of infestation is high, which is true, unfortunately, but this can be explained by the fact that we worked in fields that were very heavily infested. So we waited a relatively long time before to apply the first treatment. So the fields were heavily infested that year. And also in our design, we kept rows of plants that were not treated between our plots. And these act as we use that as a buffer between our treatments. And these plants were very heavily infested. And then we saw some migration from these untreated and very infested plants toward our treated plants that were less infested. And so it's negatively affected our result with putting up the numbers of caterpillars. And this is also, we got these results after only one application, and after only one application of nematode, we get the same efficacy as the pesticide. And so we believe that if we would apply the nematodes several times in the season, maybe 3-4 times, so as much as it is done for pesticide, we could achieve a very nice result. This, of course, needs to be further evaluated. So I hope that I have convinced you that nematodes have great potential against fall armyworm in the IPM package. Importantly, local nematode can be as effective as commercial nematode. So this is very good to limit the risk of introducing foreign material with commercial nematode into a target country. Nematode can be produced locally without relying on external sources. For example, there is a mass production facility similar to what Professor Carolini showed before with this Erlenmeyer flask. So in Rwanda, it's possible to produce this nematode, and in many other countries as well. Unfortunately, to be truly effective, a pen may need to be incorporated in special formulations, such as in a gel, as opposed to a simple water application. And finally, the addition of protectants and/or fall armyworm attractants may increase the efficacy of the nematode. So, for example, in the formulation, we could put UV protection to enhance the survival of the nematode, or we could also put maize juice or maize others into the formulation to increase the efficacy of the product. So in the result I showed you before, it was just simple formulation without attractants, but it's possible to add these things as I showed you in the video. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to thank also the funding that allowed us to do this research, and also all the collaborators that contributed to this. Thank you very much.